Hello and welcome back to the weekly physics podcast with your guests Isaías Lopez,
Hi.
Krishna Sandoval, Alan Mendoza, and me, Joaquin Murguia. This week's topic is kinematics and dynamics, but not in your theoretical way, more in a practical way. Uh, Mainly applied in different disciplines uh, all over the world. So, uh, very often during school, we ask ourselves, well, why is this useful to me? How will I ever use it? And truthfully, that question usually has an answer, especially in physics. But that's what we were going to discover today. So, if you will, you may start.
Of course, I already make an investigation about the kinematics and dynamics. And principle I find about information technology, IT, and I see some information about the motion sensors that we use in cell phones or inclusive in video games. Actually, this is a little connected with the virtual reality when we put the glasses and we make the movements with some controls or for example with the cell phone we make the gyroscope and accelerometers.
Gyroscope.
Mhm.
Yes.
And also we can see that in the joy-cons of the Nintendo Switch, of when we do movements we can see the character making the make a response of the movement we do with the controller. Um, Also, I find about the robotics because dynamics and kinematics are here, and to see the study of the movement of the arms with the of the robots, um, because these need to be um, to move in a specific way. And also, I find some about video games physics. Um, for example, and the movements of the character, um, or it depends of the player, no. For example, and everybody have played Angry Birds. When it depends the power of the bird, of how you charge the bird and the angle you take, and it flies and destroy a lot of boxes, wood, ice, and it explodes. Depends of the bird,
That's
of
true.
course.
Video game programmers tend to simulate physics inside their code. Also, that you mentioned something very interesting about motion controls. Motion controls have been a huge revolution in the last few years, maybe even a couple
Yes.
decades. But now they are at its peak ever. The recent motion controls are very, very precise, and all of that is thanks to physics, dynamics, and kinematics mainly.
Of course. Actually, their PlayStation and do a VR controllers, and this was one of the last and the technology has done with the motion controllers because it is the most exactly way then it can detect the movement of the person. But actually, um, I investigate about the animation that is a little connected with video games and all that stuff because I found here a lot of character movements, physical simulations, special effects, and camera movement cinematics. And um, mostly of the information I found was a little of what I said of the video games with the motion controllers. Um, um, Physical simulations, like a set of the Angry Birds, when the bird crash with the boxes and the boxes blow away.
Or where
And
you or where you look an angle of the your character, you look the screen and you move it an other angle for the control and the automatic the camera mm, configuration for the character look the forward the screen. This and technology for I know this developed for 10 years ago. In 10 years ago, the technology no it's no was very well for now.
yes,
Actually, I have a 3D animator program in my computer right now, and it's really clear when you use it, the all the physics that go inside of the simulators, especially angles and the vector movement. Everything is well well connected.
well, now is not, I don't know if someone have to say something.
Yes, the regarding the motion controls again. I'm sorry to bring it back one more time, but to just to show the advancement in near 2010, a video game by the name of The Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword
Mm.
came out for the Wii console from Nintendo. This game forced you to use the motion controls integrated in the controllers to actually move the sword of the main character.
Uh,
Well, uh, it was a bit rough because it wasn't very precise, but it has evolved so much that in the in the new console from Nintendo, the Switch, they have a game that is exactly just motion controls. It's called One Two Switch, and it's so precise that it asks you to make very subtle movements with your controllers, but they can actually measure if you were faster or slower than the other player, even with movements as subtle as just moving your hand a bit.
something can
Oh,
have
well,
a no continue.
no,
You
continue, continue. No.
something can have an fascination for the when the ball the people for the ball this game is this translate the mathematical formula for this and doing in our world and translate this and virtual world free and think is fascinating because and who you is who you was and good you creating your own words.
Mm.
It's damn fascinating. It also
Yes,
be relationship on the topic of the IE.
it is very interesting because it requires the development team to
Oh,
literally simulate our reality, adding every law of physics, or at least all they will use, to a code and then translate it into something playable. Oh, well, as you said, we may continue with artificial intelligence. How can we use this to physics topics?
All right. First, we have to understand, and this is a personal opinion, and especially because I'm very interested in the area of machine learning. I think that is one of the most important tools for the future. And for me, in my personal opinion, I want to say that the advancement of the machine learning will be the next industrial revolution. I don't know if you know the history of the industrial revolution, the change of the work and all the work like we know the world nowadays. But maybe you have the question, why exactly? And it's easy. This why this will help you to automate tedious tasks. And I'm going to give you some examples. In this case, kinesmatic and the motion, because we have to understand the kinematics and the kinematics and dynamics are the combination to do the motion. I'm going to give you an example of the simulation. Maybe because we have already done some homeworks with this topic, when we have to calculate the speed of a car and the acceleration, deceleration, the distance traveled, and the time, these kind of things. We can use the machine learning or the artificial intelligence, the IAs, to predict what will happen with this situation. And this is one of the most important things that we have to understand. Is very precise, like exactly to do these homeworks, and it's difficult to find a fail in the prediction of these kind of things already. I don't know if you know about the team of cryptos or the stock. Stock is a kind of prediction that use when you want to speak about the money. If the
Investment.
function is predict what will happen with the valuation, and I know it's different thing, but that is useful to explain the exactly to the prediction of the EAs to the motion. And in this case, this is one of the most important things that can do.
So what you're saying is that if we feed artificial intelligences enough data about physics laws, they will be able to predict a lot of problematics or solutions to problematics that relate with these topics of physics, right?
It's
Yeah.
possible continue, Christian.
No, continue if you
It's
want.
possible that in some future the some AI predicts the 100% the weather.
It's not only in the future, it's now. By the way, I want to say example when I was with Isaias playing Terraria.
Hmm.
We was playing and Isaias wanted to kill some enemies to get item, but this item has a possibility of 0.02% to get this item. So I
Gets the item.
use ChatGPT to know
Wow.
the probability and the number of monsters that Isaias have to kill to get this item. And this is example of nowadays what you can do with the machine learning and the IAs and the artificial intelligence.
Mm,
Yeah, and no, I think that in the near or maybe not so near future, what might be happening is that AI may be able to accurately predict things like earthquakes much earlier than what we can do now.
mhm.
I don't know what you think about it, but if that's the constant right now, I think that might be possible.
Of course,
Okay.
actually, recent I see a new. I think Krishna passed the information to me of a notice and that he received in his cell phone of earthquake in Sedimex.
Yeah, so do I.
Uh, so it's time to wait if it's going to happen or not.
Let's hope so, because that would actually be very useful for everyone in places with high seismic activity, like Mexico
Ah,
City or the country of Chile.
all right.
Oh, well, continuing with the next topic, it's quantum mechanics. Now, not everyone knows exactly what quantum mechanics is, but to put it simple, it is the study of movement. That's why it is called mechanics, but at an atomic and subatomic level. Now, why is it different from regular mechanics, Newtonian mechanics, which largely include kinematics and dynamic. Well, the thing is, atomic and subatomic movement is different. Let's see a very clear example, our own movement. When you move your own hand, uh, Newtonian physics can predict or maybe measure what happens with that movement, but that would be the movement of your entire hand or finger or whatever. But atoms and subatomic particles work in a very different way. There's a law that states that you cannot accurately predict the speed and the location of atomic or subatomic particle at the same time. And this is what gave birth to quantum mechanics. But as such, they are still mechanics, and similar terminology applies to them. After all, we are still trying to measure or predict movement. It's really hard to give like a different example, and that is because movement of atomic and subatomic particles is really rare to see in a daily life. But get something like, imagine something like the atom collider. We know that they exist, and they use quantum mechanics to be functionable, because what they do is they feed subatomic particle into atoms or another subatomic particles to see what happens. And it is quite funny when you think about it, because there are a lot of scientifics that say that these atom colliders are essentially just toys, and they are just a base for even greater machinery or devices that may be constructed in the future. Why? The reason for this, it's because what the atom colliders do doesn't actually add anything to people other than theoretical studies. They are
Okay.
practical, but they only yield theoretical solutions or theoretical information.
Then the atomic collidities have a relationship when um, this word of quantic that I listed normally in the actuality videos of the ideology of the everything use the word quantic. This refer to something little that you refer to atoms. I don't understand completely.
Yeah, at least in the concept of quantum mechanics, the word quantum refers to atomic and subatomic particles.
All right, clear.
I think it's so funny that because now I remember the story of Schrödinger. I don't know if you know him, the famous cat of Schrödinger, because yes, I think the quantum is very very strange as you can predict with exactly, and I think in nowadays it's very very difficult to understand. It's very funny because that you say I remember the history that how thought that quantum was crazy and ended up explaining completely. I don't know if you know exactly the concept of the cat of Schrödinger, but is you have a cat on a box, you don't know if the cat is dead or not dead. There are a lot of different versions, but it's the same concept. You don't know if the cat is dead or alive, but you will. It's very very strange to understand, but you don't know if the cat is live or dead. But when you are open the box, you will know what is happening, and it's a different alternative universe. And for this reason, I think it's very difficult to understand actually,
Yeah,
because
funnily
there are
enough, The paradox of the Schrodinger's cat is actually a mock that they made for the concepts of quantum physics when they were proposed by this man Schrödinger, because the paradox says that while you don't that according to quantum theory, while you are not checking the box, uh,
Ah,
the cat will be dead and alive at the same time until you open the box and see if it is alive or dead. That's why it's a mock. It's because it's paradoxical. It is impossible. A being cannot be alive and dead at the same time. And that's why they made this paradox. But reality has proven that Schrödinger was right.
Yeah, it's very strange, but it's so interesting. I think the quantum, and especially.
this have a relationship with the theory of the some uh, topic of something of the science have the two atoms of the flowing for different direction if never never stop when if two have never see or when something or somebody and see one the separate for the two the separate for everything or something. I remember this theory of the science. This have the relationship with it.
I don't know, but maybe. Okay, well, moving forward. Now it's the turn of engineering. Engineering is a massive,
Yes.
massive subject. So, how does kinematics and dynamics apply to it?
All right, the engineering and discipline have and dedicate for the solving problems when you see the how world have know the Disney engineer have to do different type of resolve problems by using normally the mathematics for and the give of the topics for solving these problems. For example, when you have working in a plant of the chemicals, you use the gate for flowing the powers. But in a specific case, you have you ingenious for to solve this problem. You can use the guide, but you have the use the engineer for to solve this problem. But this in the engineer in the university that study the engineer um, use the many topics of mathematics for the both you analytic um, analytic mind. Uh, yes.
No, I was going to say that that's true. Um, Problem solving is really the main characteristic of engineers, but there are a ton of actual engineering careers that focus mainly on physics, namely physics engineering. Continue.
But and this have the relationship when the physics when they same time use the mathematics for that use the authors for the mathematics for the physics that have formulas and do you have to use different type for to solve this problem when we use to solve the problem of the topic of the teacher and normally we know resolve this problem if we know have an analysis related this topic this problem it have more difficult if you don't have for a strong base of the mathematics.
Yeah, that and thinking out of the box is really important for an engineer. That's very much tied with the problem solving characteristic. Someone wants to add something?
Yeah,
Mm,
I think is actually you say that and this works. And an example in engineering is like in physics engineering, and but also there is others engineering I think is very useful these topics in case of robotics, like I said in the first items. Also, I don't know. Um, uh, Robotics, mechatronic is also the almost this the same thing.
Mechanic also mechanic.
Also,
Yeah,
mechatron.
that is
Many
what I was going to
different.
say. Mechanic, aeronautical mechanic,
Mhm.
maybe even for uh, the ones that make the cars and such. Every one of those careers require extensive physics knowledge, especially dynamics and kinematics. The reason for this is because building a machine requires you to use rotating and small pieces that go together, and you need to know how big they need to be, what forms they need to have, how will they interact to make a greater structure and such. I think dynamics and kinematics are very important for those kind of careers, especially.
Yes.
Moving on, we have aeronautics. I was mentioning the engineering, but here we will talk a bit more about it.
Well, now I'm going to speak about the aeronautics. And first, we have to understand what is the aeronautics. It's a discipline that studies the navigation and design of vehicles that move through the air, such as airplanes, helicopters, and drones, among others. So, what we can understand with that, um, and how we can relationate it with the kinematics. That kinematics is the branch of physics that studies the movement of the bodies without taking into account the causes from the process, and the dynamics studies the causes of the process that forms the motion. And the relationship between the aeronautics and the motion is the motion provides the necessary tools and the concepts to analyze and describe the movement of air of the vehicles. And for example,
Mm.
I don't know, if you want to calculate the speed of the acceleration, the velocity, I don't know, or the trajectory or the distance traveled in of an airplane, and you are going to use the tools. And already I want to say that with relation between the aeronautic and the EAS is that the EAS use the tools that provide use the aeronautics to predict the what is going to happen, what is happening in this moment, or what will happen when you are using one of the different tools or airplanes, or I don't know, something what you want to use to this. So for this reason, this is the relation between the aeronautic and the motion.
Yes, I mean every machine that has a motor needs some level of kinematics and dynamics to work. But a more palpable example is the propeller. Specifically, of course, in the helicopters. But the propeller of these machines needs to turn in a very specific at a very specific speed with a very specific amount of force. This is, of course, because we need it to fly. We if it if it rotates too slow, the machine will not fly, and if it rotates too fast, the machine will just keep elevating until it cannot elevate anymore, and you would die. So yeah, it is very important to to understand that dynamics and kinematics are very important for apparently everything. So yeah, the next time someone asks you why they are studying physics in class, you will have something to answer them. That is
Yes.
something that is very clear to me.
Yeah, actually, we have to understand that it's something very serious and it's not as simple as living in and saying what's happened. No, because a lot of lives are in the game and they can die if you commit a misclick or that's cause a lot of damage for this reason.
Yes. Fortunately, we are a podcast and they're not actual
Of
physical
course,
engineers, so we're fine.
not like the two guys who flies a plane here in Merida and crashes. Do you hear about that notice?
Not actually not.
No?
I did.
A plane crashes in a house here in Merida.
Wow.
Actually, there are videos. I think that's why we have to be careful with all this case of aeronautics.
Yeah, I mean, your physics class won't end on you killing someone like this, but it's good to understand that they are important, especially if you want to dedicate to something like that. Well, I think we can wrap it up for today, and I think we will see ourselves next week. I was Joaquin Murguia, and these were my co-hosts.
Of
Please
course.
introduce yourself.
Well, thank you to hear us.
Thank you and goodbye.
Thank you.
Yeah, so
Thank for
say
your
your
time.
names. Say your names
My
again.
name is Isaias.
My name is Alan Mendoza.
I'm Krishna.